One day, I randomly decided to make a mini-series about making a volcano because I was new to World Edit and this was my first high-effort creative project. You can see that over the course of this video, I got better and better at building and redid a lot of things like the shape of the volcano itself. I got more serious about it too, as a few minutes in the video, I downloaded and learned to use a mod called Replay Mod, which makes watching the building way better. It was a great learning experience, but the series lasted way longer than expected and ended up being 35 TikTok video parts. Funny thing is that my first TikTok video ever created made fun of people who did part 2 videos.
Oh my gosh, guys, I just got a mysterious box in the mail. It says it's a suspicious box. That's crazy. That's top secret. If we get this video to 1 million likes, then I'll do a part 2.
However, I do think that this is different because I don't intentionally withhold content so that people follow me to eventually see it, and this is very high effort. As the series progressed, I got more and more complaints that I was stretching out the series, which was annoying because especially towards the end, I just wanted to get it done. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and once I decided that I would make a survival server with this as spawn, I kicked the effort into high gear. Stick till the end of the video to see all the details of joining the server to see the volcano for yourself. The reason I didn't just build the whole volcano and then make a series about it is that I thought it would be a good interaction with my viewers and get ideas from them. However, if I'm honest, I didn't really get many good ideas other than people rightfully claiming that the volcano looked too much like a tree trunk. Eventually, I did fix that issue by referencing many pictures of real volcanoes. Initially, I was building the volcano based on preconceived notions from Lord of the Rings and Wii Sports Resort, which I will show reference images later to in the video. In case you were wondering, the mod that I used in the video for commands and placing large amounts of blocks is called World Edit. I placed sand because it actually cares about gravity. The blocks that I used to make up the volcano itself were blackstone, black concrete powder, coal blocks, obsidian, and black wool. I shaved off the top of the volcano since it was too tall, and this would give me space to add something above it. Then I expanded the volcano at this point because it looked too much like a tree, and don't worry, even though it still doesn't look good, I will make it look better later in the video. I was working on magma spots, but then I destroyed them because I decided that the volcano would be dormant, as many people have already done erupting volcanoes, and it would fit the build better. Then I started my first attempt at making the inside of the volcano. I decided upon adding stone that gets more common the farther that you get down into the volcano, because it just felt right and I thought it was visually appealing. I built mini tunnels that led to pools of lava, but I didn't end up keeping them. However, at this point, I started a section of the build that I thought would just end up being something small but cool. Let's just say it turned out to be a build in and of itself. For the entrance to what I end up calling the Cavern, I just made a small jaw that I did modify multiple times. I didn't put much thought or effort into it because this was just part 5 of the series and I thought I would just make a few more parts and be done with it. Little did I know that it would drag on for months and 30 more parts. I added a bit of magma and did some terraforming, which eventually I would end up deleting and restarting for something a bit more perfectionistic. Next, I created a stairway down into the Cavern, which would be the first sign of civilization in this build. I modeled it a bit after the big stairways from the Mines of Moria in the Fellowship of the Ring, but I didn't make the arches because after experimentation, I realized that it didn't fit in this build. Here I went into a very strange direction and a lot of experimentation with the build. I wanted a vault with a dragon egg or something, but then I upscaled it massively with an obsidian box. I made it kind of like the box was a holding cell for what's inside. After even more experimentation and creativity, I went haywire with the crying obsidian block, which I always thought was cool. I placed the crying obsidian in a way that it looked like living tendrils from a show such as Stranger Things. I used even more creativity by creating a structure and story for some science lab that is built into the walls of a cavern. At this point in the build, I started to become more of a perfectionist and put way more effort into the build. This got more and more so throughout the entire building process to the point that I antagonized over even the smallest details, which actually made building the volcano way more stressful than it had to be. Also, there's lore to the volcano, which I'll explain at the end of the video. I placed campfires underneath the lava to give off smoke, but I removed that when I got the whole lava pool later in the video. I do even more terraforming and exercise even more perfectionism as I try to make every part of the cavern to look as good as possible. But of course, what is more noticeable is that I finally downloaded and started to use a mod called Replay Mod. As you can see, this allows for more of a cinematic view, but as I'm so inexperienced with it, the camera moves too fast sometimes throughout the video, and I sometimes focus too much on capturing every detail. I did more terraforming, but what's funny is that while I was building, I joined a TikTok group called The Mine House and was talking to other creators. I say that it's funny because from what I remember, the conversation was amusing. I I just thought I'd point that out. I dug out areas that I was undecided if they would end up being hot springs or lava pools. Then I started what would become science labs. To add to the lore that I'll explain at the end of the video, I blocked in what I call the entity with white stained glass and iron block frame. To demonstrate how strong the metal that the scientist built with was, I made sure that what is yet to come didn't affect any of the iron blocks. Then I made gashes in the ceiling of the cavern, but I realized soon that I should reverse them. Next, I started work on a very detailed part of the build. The lab itself was quite difficult to build because I'm terrible with interior design. I decided upon having a series of floors with an elevator to bring you between the floors. Of course, I went heavy on the white futuristic theme throughout the entire lab. The top floor is dedicated to experimentation and research as I build a library and attempt at a row of computers and sectioned off crying obsidian testing room. The next floor is the cafeteria with more than enough seating, a place to get food, snow layers portraying trays, and a hopper garbage disposal system. The floor beneath that is just a dormitory with bunk beds. The bottom floor is a storage area for tools and supposed vials. The floor above that one was the bathroom area. Then I copied it all to the other side. The stalactites look way better than the gashes because to me they look more natural and make way more sense. I then tried out lava pools, which I ended up changing later in the video. It's hard to see, but at this point I changed all the stone into a variety of grayish blocks. Next, I changed some stone blocks into black stone as if the lava from the magma chamber occasionally drips down and pools into the lava pools, but I ended up changing that too later. I had this strange idea of adding greenery through the form of vines, mossy cobblestone, and even leaf blocks to branch around the cavern. I'm not exactly sure why I chose to do that, but I just wondered if it would look good, and I just went with it. At this point in the build, I chose chaos as I built the tendrils as if they were infecting the whole cavern and destroying the sanctity of the labs. If you made it this far into the video, make sure to hit that big red button called subscribe because I will continue to make content like this in the future. And if you like the video, you will get absolutely nothing, except for my gratitude. I knew something was missing, which was that the tendrils were just not thick enough, so to make them seem more menacing and destructive, I enlarged them. Next, I removed the jaw entrance because it just wasn't cutting it anymore. I replaced it with my rendition of a magical vault that keeps the entity inside. It also answers another concern about how lifeforms can survive the cavern when it's right next to a lava pool. Finally, I replaced the lava with water to make the cavern look like a mini oasis in the volcano with water and life. I gradually integrated stone throughout the volcano interior, but that doesn't matter because I ended up gutting the entire thing out anyway. I decided that it would be smart to section off the volcano from the rest of the world with a big red border. It looks super glitchy and stuff because it was hard to capture the actual building of it due to reasons that I won't get into. After I built the border, I was working underground and in spectator mode to get rid of caves and stuff, but something really bad happened. When I meant to type / replace white tulip stone, I left out the word stone, so it replaced millions of blocks with white tulips. It crashed my game as lots of them broke and created far too many entities, so I couldn't just / undo to undo all the damage that was done. I also didn't have any recent saves of the game, so I just had to fill in the empty space with stone and keep working. Luckily, it didn't destroy too much that I ended up really caring about. After I repaired the damage, I removed the rest of the caves and gaps underground, then I flattened out all the sand on the surface to reshape the volcano. I spent a lot of time trying to decide what shape I wanted the volcano to be by experimenting and referencing real pictures of real volcanoes. I eventually realized that more of a circular shape is the form that I really need to go for. At this point, it was part 20 of the series, and what I found especially funny in this one was that I basically told people to respect each other despite political differences, but switched it right into existential nihilism. Now, I'm not a nihilist, but I found it funny to mess with people's minds in the way that I did. It was really just a cruel, dark joke that I currently don't regret. I talked about another thing in this part, which was about how little my life has changed from getting hundreds of thousands of followers and millions of views. The point is that many of you desire so much to have fame, but really doesn't gain you much, and happiness it brings is fleeting. At last, I finished the brunt of the volcano terraforming, as it was more so the shape that I desired. Then, I turned all the sand into volcanic blocks for specific reasons. I smoothed out the surface of the volcano and made the decline of the bottom far more gradual, which was a tremendous improvement. I was really stressing about how I would get the volcano to actually look good shape-wise, because I spent approximately 19 hours in total over the course of the series trying to get it to look real and natural. This small change made a huge difference. Then I started the gutting out of the volcano by expanding the center and creating a center for the entire build. Instead of doing more volcano shaping, starting the jungle, or remaking the inside of the volcano, I decided to procrastinate by creating a city that took a long time to perfect. I created red circles to base the structure of the build on. I tried so many different things, and my creativity was really struggling with this one. I managed to create a base and pillars that I would add to. I was playing around with the commands and decided to experiment with a pyramid roof. I got the idea of using a pyramid and doing patterns from Trixie Blox' Desert Temple build video. Then I created the first iteration of the stairway down to the volcano because there needed to be an entrance for when I would put this on a server. Then, to keep the lore and color palette consistent, I made the last change to the cavern, which was changing the stairway to this dark blocks. I used a command to move the entire cavern to the right to center it with what would become a city in the very center of the volcano. I tried integrating more of the scientist theme into the build by changing parts of the pillars into iron blocks. I then completed this first iteration of the city by creating a wall and doing a little bit of terraforming. But then I got a bunch of complaints about how large the city was compared to the volcano, so I decided to shrink it a bit. I kind of stopped with the city temporarily and decided to procrastinate and just work on terraforming the land under which will be the jungle. I had a lot of fun with it because I was learning as I was building. After all that terraforming, I spent a lot of time to mix in jungle trees and jungle bushes all along the outside of the volcano. Then I integrated a lot of grass blocks leading up to the volcano to make it a lot more natural. I guess I took the easy way out because I used a lot of brushes and commands rather than doing a ton of custom work, which, I mean, let's face it, it kind of looks better that way anyway, and it's way easier. I realized that there wasn't really a good way to fix the city, so I just ripped it out completely to restart. I built the first thing, which was the small monument and center of the new city. I still don't really know what its purpose was, but I guess it looks cool. I then built a small wall around the monument, ripped out a wall from the first city, and replaced it with a new wall and an intricate gate. The gate was made to look like it's actually functional, and on the server that I'll reveal more details about at the end of the video, it was made to be actually functional using commands. After a lot of experimentation, I found a design for a pathway into the volcano that I was actually happy with. Of course, I added patterns, support structures, and lots of crying obsidian for lighting. I did a bit of terraforming and set to work on a good design for the floor of the city. I started out with some regular designs, but a viewer on my livestream suggested to make a fog floor. I know it's completely impractical, but I thought it turned out really cool and was very symbolic, so I kept it. Next, I started on even more detail, which was the city itself. I had the upper class living areas, which were the ends of the city. Then I built the skilled labor areas with cooking, smithing, map making, and so much more. Then finally, I built a cramped living area for the lower class in order to excuse the fact that I didn't want to spend more time on the city and build a realistic surrounding town that would supply all the workers. The city has to have workers somehow, and it definitely wouldn't have enough space for each one to get their own house, so that was the solution. After I finished the city, I removed all the red concrete like removing painting tape after you finished painting. I finally started gutting out the inside of the volcano and shaping it using some sphere commands that I discovered. I realized that I could create a spherical shape and fill in the outer blocks in order to create the design that I want. I tried so many different sizes of spheres and find the right shape that I wanted. Afterward, I used the same command to dig out a section for the lava pool. One might say that this is a problem because since I use perfect shapes to form the inside of the volcano, everything is too perfect and unnatural. However, I really don't care at this point. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time to make a small change. I wanted to use campfires for smoke, but after a ton of experimentation, I realized that it wasn't the right way to go for so many reasons. Then I just filled in the lava, turned the stone into volcanic blocks, terraformed the area around the vault, and designed the vault door for entering the magma chamber. I spent a lot of time to make the magical doors because they had to be a way to contain the lava. To top off the interior of the volcano, I added magma and stone blocks. The interior ends up being a bit empty, but I think that's alright, and I was downright tired of building the volcano at this point. After a little terraforming, I started the last part. Finally, I decided to take on the last big part of this project, a dragon. Naturally, I had no clue what I was doing as I've never built anything like it, so I referenced a lot of YouTube tutorials, which kinda helped, and referenced some images that I didn't realize were actually wyverns. After I uploaded the last part to TikTok, which was part 35, I got thousands upon thousands of people saying that it was actually a wyvern and not a dragon. It's funny that I didn't realize that it wasn't actually a dragon because I literally have a small dragon right behind me when I'm sitting at my computer. In total, it took about 14 hours to make the wyvern, as I had to redo many small details and the big details, which were the legs and tail. It took a surprising amount of time to extend the tail and make it look better, but in the end, it was worth it. The legs were way too big and looked like they were standing on something, so I completely deleted them and redid them. In the end, they still look a bit too big, but they are better and I don't feel like fixing them. Also, this was my first video ever to get 1 million likes on TikTok. The lore of the volcano is that an ancient civilization found the entity growing in the volcano and trapped it in an obsidian cube and portal vault to harness the energy. They use that energy to control a dragon, which to this day protects the city even though its inhabitants are all dead or have left. The civilization used that power for their structures and many other things. Much later, the scientists set up in the cavern to study the entity in its hibernation state, but it woke and spread throughout the cavern. I could go more into depth, but that's all I care to make official.